Hello, you're very welcome along to this, another one of the previews for this year's ARVR Innovate conference, which is coming up very quickly now. Today is Monday and it's on this Friday. We still have some tickets available. They are selling fast, so we're expecting upwards of 300 delegates at this year's event, and a whole host of speakers, both Irish and international, and also panel discussions, and a great chance to try out the technology. So please do so. Delighted to welcome into this this live broadcast Neil Curran, who, as you can see there, is the R&D lead of Ray. Thanks very much for taking time out today to talk to us, Neil.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Yeah, it's a busy week for you, and I know that you're keynoting at the event itself, and we'll come to that in a moment in terms of what people could expect to hear from you, and indeed people who visit your Expo stand, because you're exhibiting as well, and try out an experience. But I guess your R&D lead, as I said. But first of all, tell us a little bit about the company first.
Yeah, so Ray create data-driven VR training simulations for hazardous environments. So our mission is to help large organizations who have activities that are risky or remote or rare to train in a more authentic, memorable, and measurable way. So talking about organizations like militaries, um, commercial pilots, United Nations, offshore wind companies, those sort of companies that undertake those tasks. So it's both the VR side and we're data driven as well.
Yeah, we maybe have a chance to come to that in a moment, because I think that is something that your company has always set out its stall about. It's not just a VR, but it's about integrating AI into the process, and iterative process, so you're learning from how people operate in the environment, and in turn enhancing the offering as an iterative process.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes to the core of what we're about. It's about capturing some of that data and feeding it back to training instructors. And it comes from the guys who are undertaking the building of a training simulation for the United Nations in Somalia, and it was a counter improvised explosives simulation they were looking at. And so guys would go down the route and see if they could spot these improvised explosives, and they were like, oh, there must be something here. If we could just capture the data here, why someone looks at a tree in VR, looks at it and still doesn't see the explosives. And so they figured they were onto something here. So yeah, it was really interesting story of how it came about.
Yeah, and I guess we don't have time in this call to talk about how the hardware is evolving too. Obviously, the headsets are getting better all the time in terms of things like eye tracking is become. It'll probably be the norm in just a few years' time. That's obviously going to lead to huge opportunities for yourselves as well in terms of the type of service that you can offer.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I'll be speaking about it in my presentation. But yeah, like the HB OmniStep that measures cognitive load, predicts cognitive load in real time. It's using biometric data. I mean, that's a game changer that is really at the moment only being used maybe to design things from a marketing perspective, or but like for us in training, like yeah, it's a complete game changer. The hardware is progressing really quickly. Other biometrics, as you said, pupils, uh, galvanic galvanic skin response, all that sort of thing.
It's just it's amazing what's
Yeah.
coming down the track. So right now, you mentioned that you'll be touching on this anyway, but maybe just give people, without stealing all your thunder, because you've about 20 minutes on stage. But what are the themes that you will be talking about this Friday?
Yeah, so looking at how AR and VR is an enabler for more evidence-based training. And we're still seeing a lot training being undertaken and decisions being made around students that are very subjective, and we all have an inherent biases. Um, and the thing about evidence-based decision making is to try and incorporate some evidence, um, not just based on your sole experiences. So other evidence, like using data that we capture in VR or AR, to inform your decision making regarding a student. Should they undertake that scenario again, or what sort of skills could they be improved on? So just to capture that. So that's, I'll be talking about kind of the evidence, what evidence-based decision making is, and how AR and VR is an enabler for that.
Now, on that theme of identifying an evidence-based agenda, obviously, artificial intelligence is just hugely exploded in the news, and it's something that I've been asking all the speakers about in terms of how you see that AI and will impact on your what you do. And I probably should mention there's a couple of great panels, but there's one specifically on that theme with Sure Valley Ventures. People could check that out on the website, where we've got a really great panel specifically on the relationship between AI and AR and VR. But what's your own reflection on it, Neil?
Yeah, well, again, it comes back to what you were saying about the improvements to the hardware and the technology and what can be captured. I really think that we're going to get to the stage, and it's an area where we're looking at now, that you have this adaptive learning environment in VR based on things like cognitive load, based on engagement and focus, that the environment, the training environment, can adapt to the student. So almost like this adaptive curriculum. You think of how a syllabus is written now, and a curriculum. Someone puts down an hour or two to learn this skill, but maybe some people could do it in 30 minutes. Maybe some people might take longer than 2 hours. And if you could use AI and particularly in a VR environment and an AR environment to adapt to the cognitive ability of the end user, or even their ability to focus and learn, then you should, in theory, speed up how quickly they learn and how ingrained it is for them.
I think that's so important, the point that you make there. Someone who works in education myself, we talk a lot about meeting people at where they are in the learning journey, but in a sense we still have quite rigid systems, which is that the syllabus will be covered for a 2-hour period every Wednesday over a 12-week period, and by the end of that you're assumed to meet the learning outcomes. And that's a very rigid way of understanding how people learn. So I think it's really exciting what's evolving, and I think VR will be an accompaniment even in the to, for example, the learning journey of students who may well still be on the same course, at least in the short to medium term, but during that they can still also pick up extra learning, or deepen their learning, or catch up on their learning using something like VR, for example.
Yeah, and there goes the other benefit of VR and AR, is that it's mobile. You can take it home in comparison to the other simulators, the big expensive ones. For a pilot, be the military or commercial, that they can train at home with their own VR. But what we're looking at is capturing that data, so that what you don't have is that they're training themselves and there's reinforcing bad practices, and that data can be shared with a training instructor, and that training instructor can look at their session and their analysis, and see how they're progressing, and see if there was any areas what they shouldn't have done. But giving them a lot more time available to them to undertake training.
Yeah, and I think in certain aspects of the training, there's a potential anxiety when you're training with others. I'm thinking about things like making presentations or negotiate. So maybe not so much in the hazardous context, but certainly in some contexts, the fact that you can do it in private is also, I think, a big benefit.
Yeah, so that's another area of measurement we're looking at, is that kind of focus. And like even just putting on VR for the first time can, for some people, be an anxious experience. They can be anxious that they might, I don't know, get sick, or of the motion sickness, or that other people would be watching them, as you're saying. Like if they have the headset on and there's a screen next to them, what they're looking at, that they might get things wrong, and then they get very conscious. So again, like, that's an area you can measure. You can measure if people are suffering from anxiety, or if they're underloaded as well, and they just don't really care about what's going on. And again, another area for AI is to adapt that learning environment to either reduce anxiety. So if you're doing pilot training where you might have them flying at night or through a storm, you might reduce the environmental conditions to reduce that anxiety and again help that learning. Exactly what you're saying as well. The fact that they can put it on at home, where they're not conscious of other people seeing them, is a big factor in reducing that.
Absolutely. Final question for you, which I've been asking the various interviewees, most of them from outside Ireland. So I do want you to get a more introspective view in terms of where is the AR and VR scene at right now in Ireland, in your opinion, Neil?
Yeah, it's very much, I think, at the just consumer based. It's at early stages, I think, on the commercial side, especially in training. And I think training is a good stepping stone to bring it then into operations. But I think people need to build confidence in it. It's for us, the people we're training, like militaries and so on. It's not there to replace the live experience. So with militaries, you're not trying to replace guys going down range and training on a range with live, like a live fire exercise. But it is, again, coming back to anxiety, it does allow them to have a repeatable training environment that's fairly similar to the live environment. And then it just, when they go on into doing say a live fire exercise, that anxiety is reduced. They're less likely to make mistakes, and safety is improved.
Yeah,
we're coming along.
Yeah, lots of benefits. I think probably in Ireland, there's still, the adoption curve has a long way to go yet compared to some markets. But then that means there's lots of opportunity for everybody as well, which I think which is really positive. What I was going to say is, if people want to get tickets for the event, they're still there at the address below. There we go. And arvrinnovate.com is the web address. Ray, our sponsors this year, delighted to have you guys on board. And I know there'll be a lot of interest. Is there anything in particular you want to flag at that people could see at your Expo stand, Neil?
No, just go there. Like, I find VR speaks for itself. People put on the headset and they just get that wow factor.
Yeah. And I do know there are a lot of first timers at the conference this year, which is great to see, from companies that wouldn't have been there before. So for a lot of them, they may have had some VR experience, but it's typically the Google Cardboard type of roller coaster stuff. And I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised just how much things have evolved in the last few years, for sure. Yeah. Neil, many thanks again. We'll finish there. Looking forward to seeing plenty of people.
Thanks very much, Alex. Can't wait.
Looking forward to seeing everybody there on Friday. Thank you.